Um, so, uh, let's see. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, so, my theme music. Um, so we can just move right on to this. Um, okay, so uh, why do I have a picture of Ronald Reagan? I don't know how much history you guys like or how much kind of thinking you do. Um, but I'm like obsessed with Cold War history, maybe because I was born in 1985, so it was kind of over by the time I started being aware of the world around me. So this is a picture of Ronald Reagan explaining to America his theory of trickle-down economics. And this has gotten me thinking for quite a long time that there might be a trickle-down theory of kind of scientific progress or communication that in the same way that Ronald Reagan's economic theories were terrible and did not help America. Um, but I won't talk about politics. I'm sorry. But it might also be the same in terms of science. And now I see that people are taking pictures of me next to Ronald Reagan. I think if you know me, you know that I can be kind of spicy, so it's fine. So here's my trickle-down theory of scientific communication, where not people from theory, but there's some idea that like you throw your theories out there, you do your theoretical exploration, you do your kind of like academic stuff, and then it just somehow diffuses out into education, industry, and application. And I think there's some kind of historical precedent for this if we think about it. So if we look at like guys like Gauss or Maxwell, it took decades or more to take their theories and produce like hydropower plants, like we saw today. But if you think of people like Jan LeCun or Tianxi Chen, who Jan came up with convolutional neural networks and Tianxi came up with gradient boosting, they did this in the last like years to decades, and this stuff is everywhere. We've seen, of course, we've seen tons of convolutional neural networks today, and so, but also like gradient boosting and all these kind of things. And so the kind of idea is that this is something that was also presented, I think, in Danny Caballero's talk yesterday, in that there is some kind of timescale problem that's happening, that's not just happening in education in terms of are these methods being produced, but also it happens everywhere. We develop these new ideas, how did they get out? And we're now approaching a period of time where it seems like the ideas that are coming out go so much more quickly out to application, industry, education, in comparison to the past. And so I think this is something to think about, and it's one of the reasons that kind of motivated me to organize this conference to begin with. And that's because I think that the way we kind of communicate about these things can change, and we can kind of accept more ideas from different spaces more quickly and kind of prepare ourselves to be more, I don't know, there's this word in academia, I think, interdisciplinary. But it's really that what we should be willing to do is sit and hear other perspectives. In this conference, I have to admit, there are some people like Omar who produced a lot of math and I didn't understand all of it. But it doesn't mean that his ideas are faulty or outside of the boundary conditions of my ability to understand them, even though he presented a lot of stuff about like Bayesian stuff, and I've worked on Bayesian things. And the reverse side, there's talks that were very like industrial applied that kind of were different from, I think, a lot of people's wheelhouses. So anyways, the idea that I have is that we should have this kind of like equal footing of everyone involved, and we should be coming together in this kind of like manner of talking to each other and interacting, even if we don't know what each other's going to say. And that's kind of the original idea I had in this, is that when you go to a conference, and I think I've said this to a few of you already, that when you end up in a conference if you go to APS, you go to AGU, you go to any conference you're normally going to, every single person there might know at least something about most of the other people there. And they probably know each other. And if you've been to that conference several times, you'll know what people are going to talk about. And in this case, I tried to invite people to give talks who didn't know each other, specifically so that everyone could hear something brand new. And I learned tons of brand new things in the past couple of days. And so so my thinking was, there is existing kind of networks of scientists and the way we communicate, but there could be new ways of how we interact and how we communicate. And so one of the things that I was hoping to do here is, instead of growing a pre-existing network or attaching ourselves to a pre-existing professional network or a community of practice, what happens when we try to think of a new community, and what would that look like, and how would we come together and talk about these things and connect like really deep mathematical theory and computer science theory and physical theory with really deep and complex problems. When you have, for example, an energy company that spans the world, that's collecting data and all these things, that's a huge problem that is perhaps unsolvable, but I think it's going to require all of these different pieces connecting. So that's my wrap-up talk. I'm sure people are kind of overwhelmed or jet-lagged, or in other ways their cognitive load has reached its limit. And so now I would like to do one final thing, which is invite you all to have a drink. If we can walk a minute across the park, not the park, but the square, the quad. I don't know. I never liked the word the quad. But anyways, there's a bar right across, Union. You don't have to join. There's no expectation. You don't have to drink a beer. You can have a juice or nothing. But it would be great to have a conversation, to hang out, and just kind of, I don't know, decompress together as we talk about the things that we've been thinking about and hearing about and all this other stuff. So, oh, and also, Thurston has something he wants to say. My co-organizer, Thurston Becker, I would not have been able to do this without him, because he mostly kind of put up with my anxiety of like, oh my God, this is a terrible idea, why am I doing this? And then he'd be like, no, keep doing it. So I think that in addition to all the connections and everything else, was a great, it was a great contribution. So thank you very much.
And I would just like to thank all of our speakers again, the participants, the local organizing team, and I'd like to say thanks to John for dreaming of this and making it happen. So thanks, John.